Good morning, friends and enemies. Today's video is the Week 5 running back preview where we go game by game, letting y'all know if I would sit or start every single fantasy relevant running back. We do this every Wednesday for running backs. We do this every Thursday for wide receivers. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And once you do so, we could hop right into Thursday Night Football. First game of the week is San Francisco 49ers at the LA Rams. Now, the Rams are already 6.5-point favorites in this one, a 46.5-point total. That spread is huge, and that is indicating that Vegas does not expect a lot of the 49ers offensive pieces to be playing in this one, which I think is reasonable given the practice reports. If we look at the DNPs up top, Juwan Jennings, back-to-back DNPs, Ricky Pearsall, back-to-back DNPs, Brock Purdy, back-to-back DNPs. There is a chance that they are without all three of those players, meaning Mac Jones would end up getting the start. And then at receiver, Juwan Jennings was DNP'd all 2 weeks ago. Most of last week, got one limited practice in. So I'm like relatively optimistic kind of that Juwan Jennings could play. I'm a little bit less optimistic about the other two, but we'll see about those guys. And then, so yeah, not that it really matters for fantasy because Kyren Williams coming off of a good game last week. San Francisco's defense just did not look the same without Nick Bosa, who's going to be out for the year. So Kyren Williams, I mean, if you have him, you're obviously throwing him into the must-start category. He's definitely not sitting on your bench. And then C-Mac, he's going to catch upwards of 372 passes in this game with all those weapons out for the Niners. Should also be noted that these are the four teams on the bye this week: Atlanta, Chicago, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh, meaning no Bijan, Algier, no DeAndre Swift, no Josh Jacobs, and no Caleb Johnston. No Jalen Warren and or Kenneth Gainwell. Next up, we've got Minnesota at Cleveland. This game is being played 9:30 a.m. Eastern time in England. Good old England. All right. We've got Jordan Mason, who's coming off of a relatively disappointing performance last week in Dublin. He's still got the work. He's still the workhorse there. I'm not overly concerned about his role here. The Browns obviously have a great run defense, but at the end of the day, Mason's going to see upwards of 18 touches. So he's going to go into the feel-good category. Quinshon Judkins is immediately in the feel-good category as well. One of the more exciting rookies of the entire class right now. He's playing so well. The over-under in this game, Minnesota-Cleveland, is 35.5. They did announce that it's most likely going to be Dylan Gabriel at quarterback in favor of Joe Flacco, which probably means they're going to be running the ball a little bit more. Dylan Gabriel is a pretty solid mobile quarterback as well. So I just think it's going to be a very run-heavy game plan for the Cleveland Browns. And on the flip side, Minnesota, they've been a good pass defense, but as you can see, they haven't been great against the run. Right now, they're in the bottom half in terms of fantasy points allowed to the running back position. Also, bottom 8 in EPA per rush allowed. So Quinshon Judkins, when I watch him play, he reminds me of Joe Mixon a bit. Like, you don't watch him and he doesn't pop off the screen, but he's big, he's powerful, he does everything well. And he's just going to be a workhorse that can continue to deliver a lot of touches for a long period of time. So that would be like my player comp for Judkins if you're trying to think of, who he is when he's on the field or what you can expect over the long term. He's a guy that you can give 18 plus carries to. He's a guy that's not going to drop passes when you throw him his way. He's a guy that can be very dependable on the goal line and will continue to score touchdowns when he gets the rock. And I think over the long term, when I think of Judkins, he's going to be one of those guys that's, he's so solid for the team, and his upside and his ceiling is going to be dictated by how good the Browns end up becoming over the next 3 to 5 year period. In years where the Bengals were a good offense, Mixon had the chance to score 12 to 15 rushing touchdowns. When the Browns are an okay team, I think Judkins will be able to do the same. And then lastly, we've got Xavier Scott, who played a lot of the passing down role for Minnesota in last week's game. However, I just don't think we're going to get a game script like that against the Browns, who kind of drag opponents down in the mud. Again, 35.5-point total here. Might catch a couple dump offs if they really get in, catch up mode, but I don't really see that happening. So Xavier Scott for now is going to be a rather not. Dallas at the New York Jets. Dallas 2.5-point favorites. I mean, Javonte at this point, I don't know how many running backs I want to start over him, especially going against the Jets defense. So he's going right into a must-start category. Breece Hall is going to be a really, really strong start as well. I'm having trouble deciding between a must start and a feels good. I don't see how you can sit him. I think I'm going to put him at the end of this tier because he gets to play the Cowboys, who, as you could see, are a juicy matchup for running backs. And on top of that, Braylon Allen is likely going to be thrown on the IR, and Isaiah Davis will fill in. He's going to be a rather not. I think he'll catch a couple dump offs and play a little bit of the passing down role, and he's been good in that role. But I'd imagine we see a near bell cow role for Breece Hall, a ton of touches to him in a really good matchup against the Cowboys. Moving on to Denver at Philly. Philly is 3.5-point favorites at home, 43.5-point total. Saquon, I know he's looked a little bit slower this year than in previous seasons, but he's still Saquon. He's still going to get a ton of touches. He's still going to get a ton of goal line work when they get down there. So you're not sitting Saquon Barkley, of course. And then you have the Denver backfield, which gets a little bit interesting, right? They played against Cincy last week. They got up big and they were able to control the clock and give the running backs a ton of touches. I think this is the tough matchup, obviously, going against the Philly run defense, who's 20th in EPA per rush allowed. Dobbins, for me, has played really well. That I feel good about having him in my lineup. I don't know that I feel as good about him compared to dudes like Jordan Mason or Quinshad Judkins, who I'd throw at the top of this tier. So he's going to go into the dub flex category for now because I am going to end up ranking him below these other guys. My rankings will go live today on BDGE.co around 1 p.m. Eastern time. That'll have all the running backs, wide receivers, positions, flex, anything that you need are in there. You can sign up to be a Big Dog member right there on BDGE.co, which gets you access to the weekly rankings. The cheapest way to do it, which will get you 3 months free of the Big Dog membership, is going to our partner site or app, MGM. Depositing $10 or more using code BDGE. When you do so, play any slip on there, and they're automatically going to send you a promo code in-app that you could use on our website for 3 months free of the Big Dog membership. So Dobbins is the one that I think if you have him, you're putting him into your lineup. The other one is RJ Harvey, who's coming off of a really big game, finally had his like kind of breakout game as an NFL player. That being said, the Broncos ran a ton of plays. Again, they were in total control of the game script against Cincinnati Bengals, which I think did lead to more explosive plays for him, which I think just overall led to more volume for a dude like RJ Harvey. So I'm optimistic about him if I've been holding on to him and I have him on my bench, but I don't think there's any way that I'm looking to actually start him this week. So I'm going to throw him into the shaky flex category because I do think this backfield, like we've all kind of expected, is now starting to look like it's more of a 50-50 split, or at least condensed down to two people, I should say. Sorry, I think Dobbins is still like a 60-40 guy, but I think it's now starting to be condensed down to Dobbins and RJ Harvey. And Harvey has that ability to hit a big play at any given moment in the game. But overall, still not sold on the workload split being high enough for Harvey to make a dent in your fantasy lineup, and the matchup against Philly is not great. Houston at Baltimore. Right now, this is a tough one to project. We are pretty sure that Lamar Jackson is going to be out for a couple weeks, so they're going to be with Cooper Rush at QB for Baltimore. The Texans are 1.5-point favorites right now. The Baltimore defense, we don't have practice reports for this week, but there's a chance that they're definitely without Metabike, who's out for the year. Nate Wiggins got banged up. Roquan Smith got banged up. Marlon Humphrey got hurt. Like, they might be without most of their star power on defense. I know Derrick Henry hasn't looked great, and the game script might favor Justice Hill a little bit, but there's just no chance you are sitting Derrick Henry, I think, with Cooper Rush at quarterback. We also saw Cooper Rush operate as the Cowboys quarterback for like 8 or 9 games last year, so he has experience. He's not someone who's going to tank the offense by any means, so I think they will be okay enough on the offensive side of the ball that I still feel fine about Derrick Henry. Justice Hill coming off the big game, I get it. You know, it feels like every time Justice Hill is a big game, we want to add him and we want to start him. But this is like the nature of fantasy. If you've been playing fantasy football for more than a year, you should know that guys like Justice Hill are typically fool's gold. That being said, the defense is really bad. They are with the backup quarterback. So game script probably does favor Justice Hill in this game more than it does in previous games. So listen, I'm going to throw him into the shaky flex category, but he's not someone that I'm like excited about getting into my lineup despite last week. Now, the big conversation to be had is Woody Marks, of course, who took over the backfield, out-snapped, out-carried, out-targeted, out-produced, out-fantasied Nick Chubb last week for the first time this season and looked damn good doing it. And this shit is actually going to be hilarious if it doesn't go exactly how everyone thinks it's going to go. Like, Woody Marks goes back to being like a 38% snap guy in this game. As you can see, man, like the Baltimore defense, it can't be overstated how underwhelming they've actually been. Allowing the single most fantasy points to the running back position, allowing the single most points overall to teams that they're playing, and then, you know, bottom 3 in EPA per rush allowed. So Woody Marks, man, I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category. I think that's eventually, when I do my rankings, probably going to get him into a top 20 back, if not a top 18 back. Because again, we have 4 teams on bye, all with guys who are fantasy relevant running backs. So you take out 4 to 6 players, and Woody Marks probably would have been like a top 22, 24-ish guy, and I think he probably cracks the top 18-ish. So at this point, I'm having a little bit of difficulty separating feels good and dub flex, to be honest with you. But Marks felt great, and I'm going to feel good about having him in my lineup. Nick Chubb, on the other hand, again, he just Like you're just praying for a touchdown from him. Moving on to the next game, we've got the Raiders at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 7-point favorites in this one. Jonathan Taylor, of course, is a must start right now. They have his props already up for this game. 87.5 rushing yards, 15.5 receiving yards, minus 260 anytime touchdown. It's a pretty high number considering Daniel Jones and now Tyler Warren are both stealing some carries on the goal line, but Vegas knows more than me, apparently. Ashton Jeanty is the other interesting one here. Because Jeanty, I think everyone coming off of last week's going to be like, oh, Jeanty's a locked-in top 10 fantasy running back. And I think that's probably the case again for this week when there are bye weeks. However, like the Bears' run defense, it can't be also overstated how bad they are. Like they're a cure-all for any fantasy running backs. We were very heavy in on Jeanty having a massive week last week. Going back to the running back rankings video from last week, we altered his rushing yards up to 100 and we hit that as one of our bets of the week. You can follow all of my slips that I place with the Pickett app, free to download. Just use code BDGE when you get on there and everything's free for you. PIKKIT, code BDGE, and it will sync with my sportsbooks. You could sync your sportsbooks. You could follow your friends. It's like a social betting app. It's pretty fucking sweet. So download Pickett and you can see what I take for this upcoming week. But Jeanty, I do think we're going to have a coming back down to earth moment for Jeanty. I still think he's extremely usable. He's going to go into the feels good category, but I'm not expecting massive numbers again. I do think what we can expect is a little bit more involvement in the receiving game on a week-to-week basis. So I like his PPR floor, but the Colts are a much more difficult run defense than the Chicago Bears. And the other part of this is the Raiders' offensive line did not fix itself overnight. And they lost their best tackle, Colton Miller, who's going to be on the IR. So that's another big blow. So again, if you have Jeanty, you're 90% starting him, but he won't be like a top 5, top 8 guy in my rankings this week. Miami at Carolina. Speaking of top 8 guys for me, Achane is obviously a must start against this Carolina run defense. Miami's 1.5 point favorites, 44.5 point total here. I think the other running back to really discuss is Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard's been pretty underwhelming the last couple of weeks. Rico Dowdle's getting a little bit more work, but we also haven't had a real game script from Carolina to know what happens when they're in a normal, 21-17 type of game. I think for the most part, it goes to Chuba Hubbard. He's obviously playing a significantly higher number of snaps than Rico Dowdle. 2 weeks ago, he got 17 carries. He's been relatively involved in the passing game as well. I think his reception line last week was at 3.5. So he's getting the targets. This is a really good matchup against the Miami team. One of the issues, though, has been when they get inside the 10 and the 5, they really are rotating between Chuba and Rico Dowdle. So I don't feel fantastic about his scoring outlook, to be frank with you. So he's going to go into the dub flex category for me, despite the fantastic matchup. And then you got the other guys like Ollie Gordon's a rather not. Rico Dowdle's also a rather not. And I also think with Devon Achane, something I should obviously bring up is without Tyreek Hill, that obviously means other pass catchers like Achane are going to have to get more involved. Maybe they use him a little bit more in the slot. They get a little bit more creative in the 10-yard line and red zone there for him. So next up, we got the Giants at the Saints. The Giants are 2.5 point underdogs here on the road, 40.5 point total. And listen, Cam Scatterbo, you're talking about 25 carries, and then he gets the Saints defense. He's going right into the must-start category for me. I know he didn't have an explosive game last week, but that kind of workload is just not something you're seeing any other running back across the league get. Tyrone Tracy's going to be out probably at least for another week, so just ride Cam until the wheels fall off, just like the Giants are about to do. The Saints backfield is a little bit trickier. Kamara's been a bit underwhelming up to this point in the season. And now we saw Kendre Miller take a little bit more of the carry share. So overall, I do think it's reasonable to have some concerns about a guy like Alvin Kamara. That being said, the matchup is fantastic. The New York Giants are dead last in EPA per rush allowed to opposing running backs, bottom 5 in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. And at the end of the day, Kamara was still playing more than 70% of the snaps in this offense. Kendre Miller just happened to have some really nice runs that happened to be the highlights of the game. But I think Kamara played pretty well. He's still running 70% of the routes on this team, in a team that's very high paced. They're running a ton of plays. So listen, I just think it's a little bit of bad luck breaking his way in the receiving game. He had 4 receptions, just didn't break anything for big plays. So I still think I feel good about Alvin Kamara. Kendre Miller is definitely going to be a shaky flex for me. It's one of those where you have to rely on a rushing touchdown from Kendre Miller, which is the Saints offense, and it's just not something that you want to be relying on a week-to-week basis. Moving over to Tampa Bay at Seattle. Seattle is 3.5 point favorites in Seattle, so Tampa Bay's got a far distance to travel, obviously, to get to the northwest corner of the great United States of America. Bucky Irving's dealing with this like foot ankle issue. We don't have word on him yet. He might play this week. He might be out for a week or so. I mean, at the end of the day, here's how we're going to wrap this up. Like, Seattle's a very, very good run defense, 31st in EPA per rush allowed. Bucky, if he's playing, you're obviously throwing him into the lineup. If he's not playing, it gets tricky with Rachaad White because it's obviously a backup running back. But when we look back to last year when Bucky did not play at the end of the season, it was all Rachaad White playing as a workhorse. So despite the tough matchup, he's going to go into the feels good category and be a rock solid RB2 with pass catching upside, with running upside, getting the majority of the goal line work here. So I like Rachaad White there. Obviously, if Bucky's playing, you're not going to end up playing Rachaad White. If Bucky does not play, Sean Tucker is a player that's going to be on people's radars, but you're definitely not throwing him into your lineup. He's gotten almost no involvement this year, so he'll just be kind of like a second fiddle to Rachaad White and very far off second fiddle, in my opinion. Now, Seattle's backfield gets tricky because this split for these two it's still completely right down the middle, right? I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to like who ends up scoring the touchdown. And realistically, Charbonnet continues to get almost all of the carries inside the 5-yard line when the two of them are on the field together and playing together. So if I have Kenneth Walker, I still feel relatively good about playing him. He's a dub flex for me. If I have him on my roster, I think I feel okay about his workload. He got like 20 touches last week. He's explosive. He's a good pass catcher. Do I expect the touchdown to come? I don't know. Vegas has him at -130. That feels a little bit juicy to me. With those types of props, you can't actually take the other side. So the only actual good comp is comparing him to other players around him. And then Zach Charbonnet is going to get some touches, might get a goal line carry or two, but he's definitely going into the shaky flex category for me. So next game up on the slate, we got Tennessee at Arizona. Arizona 7.5-point favorites at home in this one, 41.5-point total. Now, this is kind of a mess of a running back game right now because we have Tony Pollard, who's basically a walking 18 for 70 and like 9 fantasy points right now. If he gets in the end zone, he's going to have a decent day for you. If not, he's going to be a little bit underwhelming. So you know he has a floor, and I think I like him better than most of the guys in the shaky flex category, but I like him worse than a lot of the guys in the dub flex category. So I'm going to throw him into the shaky flex for right now and throw him at the top of that tier. Now, Tajay Spears has missed the first 4 games on IR, high ankle sprain that he suffered in the summer. He is eligible to return in week 5. He is expected to resume practicing this week. Will that happen? He'll likely get back to practice. Will he play? Definitely not guaranteed. If he does play, I don't think he starts off with like a huge workload by any means. I think we're probably seeing him in like a 25% snap roll, something like that. So he's going to go right into the rather not. If anything, it just hurts Tony Pollard a little bit more. Although Tony Pollard hasn't been doing much, so it's not like you can get overly excited about him regardless. On the flip side, if you're not like really dialed in right now, you might not have heard that Trey Benson could be dealing with an injury right now. Apparently, he picked something up at the end of the game, maybe an ankle injury last week versus Seattle. Now, that was played on Thursday Night Football, so he's got a little bit of extra time to recover. You love the matchup this week. I liked what I saw out of Benson last week, so he's going kind of right back into the borderline feels good must start category right now, assuming that he ends up playing. So I'm probably going to put him at the bottom of this tier, but right on the borderline of those two. Now, if Trey Benson surprisingly does not play, it's going to be some sort of split backfield between Amari DeMarcado and Michael Carter. Last week, DeMarcado played 41% of the snaps compared to Trey Benson's 53%. Michael Carter did not play much, only 6% of the snaps. However, there's some reports surfacing from Arizona beat reporters that if Trey Benson does miss time, it's likely that Michael Carter takes over the lead role as the runner, as Amari DeMarcado kind of stays in the same pass catching role that he's been whenever he does play. Now, it's important because they're playing the Titans, who are like just a cake matchup for any running back that ends up getting onto the field with Tennessee. So last year down the stretch, when James Conner got hurt, now Amari DeMarcado was not playing week 16, 17, or 18. It was Michael Carter who was the guy. He caught 5 passes in week 16. Then in week 17, 13 for 70 on the ground, 2 more catches. In week 18, 17 carries on the ground, scores a touchdown, another 4 passes. So I think Arizona's relatively comfortable with Michael Carter if they don't have their starting running back. And I think Amari DeMarcado gets a little bit of a lift to his floor, but remains in the pass catching role. So throwing this in there, if Trey Benson is out, I'm actually going to throw Michael Carter in the dub flex category. He's going to be below most of these guys, but he's going to be above the shaky flex guys. Like, I do think Michael Carter has a nice floor workload. I think the matchup is fantastic. I think he'll catch some passes. I think he'll get the goal line opportunities if they present themselves. And then DeMarcado would be a shaky flex for me. Only if Trey Benson misses, of course. Moving to the next game, we've got Detroit at Cincinnati. Detroit 10.5-point favorites. Of course, Jahmyr Gibbs is a must start. I like the matchup a lot more for David Montgomery. He's going to continue to get touches. He obviously needs a touchdown to get home, but I mean, the game script is going to be wonderful. The Cincinnati Bengals are horrendous, so I do think David Montgomery deserves to be at the bottom of the dub flex category. After that, we're asking ourselves, what the fuck do we do with Chase Brown? There's not much you can do at this point besides throw him into the shaky flex category. A lot of you guys have to start him. I mean, this Detroit run defense is really good. As you can see, they are dead last in EPA per rush allowed to the running back position. They are very, very good against the ground game. It's like, does he catch enough checkdowns to make himself worthwhile in PPR leagues? Probably not, but it is a 49.5 point over under. You have to think Jake Browning like eventually gets a little bit of his shit together, but I'm not optimistic from what we've seen the first couple weeks. So if you need to sit Chase Brown, I got no problem with that. Next up, we got Washington at the Chargers. This one's kind of simple. I think you just ride the hot hand in Omarion Hampton right now, coming off of last week's massive game versus the Giants. He looks good in all three phases. He looks explosive. He's catching passes. I mean, he looks really locked in right now. On the flip side, you're getting three guys who are playing 38% of the snaps, all getting like 10 touches or fewer. Rodriguez keeps getting the starts, but then JCM gets a series or two, whoever happens to be in during that series. And if that series ends up on the goal line, that player will probably get the goal line carry. McNichols is barely getting any work. So to be honest with you, at this point, like one of them, yes, could have a good game, but I think all three of them are just going to go into the rather not category for me. You're in a bad spot if you got to start one of the Washington runners. Though I will say, with Jaden Daniels likely returning in week 5, it gives them a little bit more upside, probably more plays that they're going to get overall, but still very hard to start any of them without having any sort of clear direction where the backfield is going. Next up, we got New England at Buffalo. This is the Sunday night game. James Cook, of course, goes right into the must-start category. They are 7.5-point favorites against this New England team, 50.5 point total. With the New England backfield, despite all the fumbles and stuff in week 3, excuse me, there wasn't much that changed. Ramondre Stevenson's still like the 55 to 60% snap guy. Trayvon Henderson ended up getting into the end zone, but if he didn't get there, he was having another absolute floor stinker of a fantasy day. Gibson also got some work down there. So right now, I think Ramondre and Trayvon are probably both shaky flex plays. Moving to the Monday Night Football game, we've got the Chiefs at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. ETN looks awesome. This Chiefs run D has actually not been as advertised the last couple of years. Bottom 4 in EPA per rush allowed to the running back position. They are 9th in fantasy points allowed to the running back position. I think Travis Etienne, again, like Omarion Hampton, just looks explosive, looks back to his old self, and he's going to be right at the bottom of this must-start category for me. Bashal Tutin's going to be, he's just not getting enough work right now, or rather not. On the flip side, I mean, you got Pacheco, who finally scored a touchdown, but he doesn't look good. Kareem Hunt's getting some early down work. But Jacksonville's defense has been pretty legit this year. So listen, if I have Pacheco, I have Kareem Hunt, rather not. Rashard Smith is starting to get more and more involved, but he's still only around a 25% snap guy. I do think they're going to continue to get more and more involved. So if he's on your waiver wire, he absolutely needs to be someone stashed at the end of your roster. And honestly, I don't mind. One of my favorite plays this week is sprinkling a little bit of juice on Rashard Smith anytime touchdown. I think they're starting to like draw up plays for him inside the 10-yard line, passing plays where, you know, if he gets open, he's going to score a touchdown this week. All right, well, there you have it. We've got 15 plus 5, 20, 26. We got 36. We got 48 running backs ranked. Let's put it in poster mode for you so you could see everybody at once on the screen. There you go. Of course, not ranked numerically at this moment, but they will be later today for the Big Dog members, right? You could sign up at BDGE.co, cheapest, 3 months free through MGM, either their app or their website. Use code BDGE when you deposit $10 or more, play any slip, and then they're going to message you in the app with a promo code to use on BDGE.co. 3 months free to the Big Dog membership. We're doing the same exact thing tomorrow for the wide receiver position. All right, so make sure you subscribe. I love you. Smoochies.